All right, it's time for episode number 58 of the Press Box Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. In this episode, we're going to give you our mid-season NFL recap. We got majority of the teams have played 8 games, so we're at the halfway point basically of the NFL season. So we'll break down the current playoff picture, what that looks like. We'll talk about some MVP possibilities at this point in the season. And we definitely want to finish up with our fantasy thoughts thus far about halfway through. I know we did the big fantasy preview show before the season, so we'll kind of give you an update of where that's at as well. So it's going to be a good episode. Thank you again for joining us, and without further ado, let's get into episode 58 of the Press Box Podcast.
Okay, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. This is episode number 58 for those who've been counting at home. Our last episode, we talked about the best sports movies of all time, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the NFL. We're at the halfway point of the season, and gosh, back in April or May, who would have ever thought we'd even have an NFL season? But thank goodness we did. The NFL has been able to navigate through COVID-19 tests and games that have been moved and changed and bye weeks that were unexpectedly had earlier than they thought they were going to have. But now we've gotten through week 8 with no games being changed. And I think the NFL will move forward here into the second half of the season. So today we want to talk a little bit about where the season is today, kind of recap some of our picks from our preview show, and kind of take it from there. So I'm joined now by my co-host, Joseph Miranda. And Joseph, what are your thoughts of the NFL here sitting at the halfway point?
Yeah, so I think the first major thought which you touched on is that there's been no real cancellations or disruptions to the season so far. You know, we've seen some games moved around, which I kind of don't mind. Like Tuesday night football is fun. You know, it happened one time. One week we got 2 Monday night games, so they're kind of doing what they need to do there. But we haven't had announced they've had to add like an extra week or something, or all the games have been played, so that's good. So that's the first major step in the right direction. But yeah, you know, about half the teams have played their 8 games, so we're pretty much right at the halfway point here. So I guess we'll start here. You know, the first thing is that basically the fall of the Patriots dynasty, right?
Yes.
For the past basically 20 years or so, you can always count on the Patriots, you know, being right near the top of the NFL around the halfway point, and they're 2-5 this year. So it looks like Brady's winning that Brady-Belichick battle right now.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, nobody can be happier than Tom Brady right now. Not only is he having another great season, but the Patriots have basically fallen apart.
Yeah.
And Bill Belichick has come out, which is unlike Bill Belichick, and starting to make excuses, if you will, about why they're in the situation they're in. Basically, to recap it, he said that they sold out to win 3 Super Bowls. You know, their last 3 Super Bowls, 14, 16, and I guess 18. Which to me is kind of sour grapes, if you will. I mean, you know, a lot of teams have taken a run at stuff and haven't made it. They just got fortunate enough to win 3 Super Bowls. But you're right. The Patriots are 2-5. I mean, they've lost 4 games in a row. They look like a shell of themselves. I said this, I think, alluded to it, that Cam Newton, while he's still a good quarterback, he's not Tom Brady.
No.
And, you know, again, you know, they're just not playing very well right now.
Yeah.
They've had injuries like most teams have had. They had a game canceled due to COVID-19, which affected them a little bit. But they're sitting at 2-5, and they lost to the Bills. Yeah. You know, and you and I both said going up to that game, we're not going to believe in the Bills until they can beat the Patriots. Well, the Patriots had a chance there. They could have kicked a field goal to tie the game and send it to overtime, and Cam Newton fumbled, and the Bills won. So now you've got the Buffalo Bills basically sitting with the lead in the division. They have a 3.5 game lead over the Patriots and a game in hand. So that's going to bode well for them. And then the Dolphins are the surprising team there, 4-3, with an outside chance at possibly pushing the Bills a little bit.
Yeah, I guess we'll start with looking at that division there. I don't think the Dolphins are a threat to the Bills. First of all, they had a big win this past weekend based on their defense, or really, and they returned a punt for a touchdown too. But I think they should have kept Fitzpatrick in there. I think they give him the best chance to win. It makes sense to want to get to some experience, but not when you're in a division battle. I mean, he didn't look very good at all Sunday.
Right.
Just based on the way he played, obviously the defense carried him to victory. But I think that's the Bills' division. Unless they completely fall apart, which I guess is possible. But I think the Bills have that division, and I know in our preview show for the season I picked the Patriots, but obviously it looks like that's not going to happen either.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I'm looking at the defenses, and of course, what I'm looking at only has points for and points against. The Bills have given up 199 points, which is one more than the points they've scored, which is 198. The Dolphins have only given up 130 points, which tells me that their defense has been playing really well. That could help them down the stretch, especially since you've got expanded playoffs right now.
Right.
So I think the Dolphins have a really good chance of making the playoffs if they can kind of keep this thing together. The Bills, on the other hand, I think they're going to win the division only because I think they just have more talent. But the Dolphins, I think, are going to make the playoffs, and the Patriots would have to go. They're 2-5. They would almost have to go 8-1. To really get to the playoffs, and I don't think that's going to happen.
And the Bills have a nice record, right? But Josh Allen is just—I don't trust him. He's going to make bonehead decisions every game. It's just a matter of can they withstand those.
Right.
And they've been able to so far, but they're not a threat in the playoffs as far as I'm concerned.
No, I don't think they are either. And let's move to the AFC. Let's move to the AFC North.
Okay.
The Steelers are 7-0, which I don't think any of us expected that to happen.
No.
Starting out 7-0. They've had this receiver that they drafted from Notre Dame, Chase Claypool, who has come on game by game and become more of a go-to guy for the Steelers. They've still got Smith-Schuster. They still have a pretty solid running back, and their defense has been playing pretty well. They've only given up 142 points, which is pretty strong. They beat the Ravens last week, which gives them a game in hand and a 2-game lead on the Ravens. So I think barring a collapse, I think the Steelers are probably going to win that division, which we all thought the Ravens were going to win it. The Ravens are definitely going to make the playoffs. The Browns are the interesting team here. They're 5-3. The only problem with the Browns is they've lost to the Ravens and they've lost to the Steelers. So I don't think the Browns have a chance to win that division. I think they do have a chance, if they can keep it together, to make the playoffs. The Browns are 5-3, but they've lost to the Ravens and Steelers, and they've lost Odell Beckham to an ACL injury, which means the defenses now are going to roll their coverages over to Jarvis Landry. It's going to be a little tougher for Baker Mayfield to complete balls down the field. I think the Browns are going to struggle down the stretch, but I still think they have an outside chance of making the playoffs.
This is where that extra playoff team really helps teams like them this year.
Yes.
Because they, I think they have a much better chance of getting into that 7th seed as opposed to having to fight for that last 6th seed as they would in a normal year. But
right.
You mentioned Odell Beckham being hurt. Nick Chubb also going down pretty early. So luckily for them, they were able to sign Kareem Hunt, who's pretty much like a starting running back. He's playing well for them. I think they're not done by any means. I think that maybe they end up around that 8-8 mark. Maybe 9-7. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, the Steelers. I think. I had them originally being the 6th or 7th seed, but obviously they're much better than I expected. And Roethlisberger's playing well. He's up there in age, but just kind of the opposite of Josh Allen. Like he's not going to do anything stupid. Like he's always pretty much. You can always count on him to make good throws and just be a good quarterback. I mean, he's playing well in his older years here. I like the Steelers to win that division. I think they might get to the Super Bowl, actually.
I think the interesting thing here, Nathan, could you look this up for us if you don't mind? Do the Chiefs play the Steelers this year? Because that's going to be the interesting point here if they play them during the regular season. Because the Chiefs, which we'll get to that division in a minute, are 6-1. Their only loss, I forget who they lost to. Do you remember who the Chiefs lost to?
I'll find that out for you, too.
Okay, yeah. So the Chiefs have one loss, but if they play the Steelers, the Chiefs are 7-1. The Steelers are 7-0 because they had their bye early. If the Chiefs beat the Steelers in the regular season, then that would give the Chiefs the leg up on the number 1 seed, which would be the only bye. So I think that's interesting.
The Chiefs lost 40-32 to the Las Vegas Raiders.
That's right, the Raiders. That's right.
Week 5, and you wanted to see if they played
Steelers.
Pittsburgh?
Yeah,
they do not.
do not. Okay, so that's going to be interesting. They're going to have to hope for the Steelers to lose at least one game, maybe two, for them to get that to get the home field advantage in the playoffs, which I think is going to be somewhat important for them. But going back to that North Division, I mean, it's really the Bengals are out of it with a rookie quarterback, so it's really a two-team race as I see it.
Also, the Bengals haven't looked terrible. Like,
No, they
Joe
haven't.
Burrow looks promising.
He does.
You know.
Yeah, he does. If they can make some good personnel moves in the offseason.
I think I mentioned this once before too. He in his first game they were saying some stat about rookie quarterbacks winning their first ever start. It doesn't happen very often apparently, and he basically won. He basically won his first start.
He did.
I think. I forget which game that was. That the game where
they missed the kick and the kicker pulled up like a.
That's right. They missed the field goal at the end to tie it. I think was it to tie it or to win it.
No, remember they had the pass interference in the end zone.
Right. That was going to win it, and
Yeah.
that was pass interference call. Then they kicked it to tie, and he missed it. So
Right.
and he basically he had two chances that could have gone either way. There one I don't remember if it was a bad call, but I think he basically won. And regarding we were talking about quarterbacks again too, Josh. You're talking about Big Ben. That made me think of the poll question we put up on the Pressbox Podcast
Right.
Twitter at PressboxPod about you said which of these quarterbacks, all of whom are at least 38 years of age or older, has been the best so far this season. This was like back October 6th.
After week 3, 2 or 3.
Yeah, and Big Ben was came in second after Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I remember I voted for Big Ben, and I think you thought that was kind of strange, didn't you? I told you asked me
At the time, yeah.
But
I still think Brady's having the best season of any of those guys, but
yeah, I guess that's a good point. Brady probably is having a better season than Big Ben.
Well, I think what Brady is showing you is that when you have a quarterback of the caliber of Tom Brady, okay, he has lifted the play of the rest of the team around him. Okay, his attention to detail, his diving into the playbook, his knowing what to expect from certain routes and certain defenses has lifted the play of the rest of the team. He's gotten those receivers playing better, and that's the thing that's hard to quantify about a receiver. Now, Big Ben is a little bit different. You know, he's more of a gunslinger type guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's hard to sack. He's going to make plays with his feet by breaking out. But I'm not sure that he has that ability. If you know what I mean. I just wouldn't put him in the same category as a Brady.
I agree.
It's because I think the Steelers are a better team than the Buccaneers on a whole.
Yes,
and he's good, and he's playing well enough to so they're just running smoothly through the year.
Right.
If you put Big Ben on the Bucs, I don't know if he'd be getting the same out of all of his
right
out of his teammates. And
Right.
Brady would be doing just the same thing he's doing with Pittsburgh.
Yes,
Brady
he would.
Brady could have them undefeated right now.
Yeah, yes, he would.
I mean, take the game Monday night, Buccaneers and Giants. The Giants had a lead. I think at one point it was 14-3 or something.
Yeah, 14-3.
And just watching, you're thinking, okay, the Buccaneers aren't out of this. Now, part of that's because the Giants aren't very good, but
Right.
I think even the Buccaneers players believe, because they have Brady, that, hey, we're not out of this. You know, we're still going to win. I thought they would win, and they did, but that's something that you don't really think about when Jameis Winston's your quarterback. You're kind of
Right.
like, oh, we're down 14-3. We're going to need to make something happen here. Let's see, you know.
Yeah, I haven't watched the Steelers that much this season, but I would say that if they had any quarterback who was just a solid, doesn't turn the ball over, they'd probably be, if not undefeated, they would still be very top of their conference.
Well, let's look at this perspective. The Patriots are 2-5, right? Okay. They lost one game to the Seahawks where they had the ball on the 2-yard line,
Last play of the game,
and everybody knew that Newton was going to run it. He did, and they stopped him.
Right.
They lost another game to the Chiefs where I believe they pulled
They did pull him.
Cam Newton.
They didn't pull him. They didn't play.
He didn't play. That's right. He didn't play that game. That's right.
What game
So
did they pull him in? They pulled him.
they
Pulled
pulled
the 49ers game.
49ers game. Okay, so let's look at this.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and they lost that game. They lost the game that he didn't play in, and they lost last week on his fumble to the Chiefs. Okay, or I mean to the Bills. If Tom Brady's their quarterback, one, he doesn't run the ball on fourth down against the Seahawks, and there's a good chance that they score there. Two, he probably plays in that game against the Chiefs, and they probably win that game. All right, maybe.
Well, you had Corona. I mean, you can't.
Okay, so let's say he doesn't play. He doesn't fumble against the Bills because he's not running the ball in that situation, okay? And he doesn't get pulled against the 49ers because Tom Brady never gets pulled, all right? So you could make a case to say that the Patriots could easily be 4-3 right now with Tom Brady, or maybe even 5-2.
Yeah.
So that tells you right there that the Patriots are not the same team without Tom Brady.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so let's go to the AFC South here. You've got tie at the top of the division between the Colts and Titans. But remind me, have they played each other already?
Not yet, I don't think.
I don't think they have. And you've got a tie at the bottom between the Texans and Jaguars, who both are done. Yeah. The Titans. I think I had them as a playoff team before the season. I can't say that I'm surprised that they're in first place, but it's just another example of, like I said, they're a streaky front running type of team.
Right.
So I mean, they got off to a hot start. Things are clicking for them, which helped them. And I think we were talking, not on the podcast, and you were making the point about Derrick Henry that once you get him rolling,
right,
it's just hard to stop him, right?
Right. It is hard to stop him. I mean, he's the kind of guy where you have to sell out on defense and hit him before he gets past the line of scrimmage. Because once he gets past the line of scrimmage, when he gets into the secondary, you can almost forget about bringing him down early. I mean, he's just too big of a guy. And then he's also a threat out of the backfield. The thing about the Titans that surprises me is they've given up 184 points. The Colts have only given up 136. In fact, the Colts, I think, still have the number one statistical defense in the NFL. The Titans should have never lost to the Bengals. Okay, that was a game they should have won. All right, they should be 6-1.
That was my what do they call it? Cold
hard lock.
Yeah,
cold hard lock of the week.
Yeah. So that tells me that sums up with the Titans. I like the Colts now to win that division. Even though they've got an aging quarterback that we've talked about, maybe not be the same as he used to be, but I think they've had an upgraded quarterback since Andrew Luck left with Phillip Rivers. So I like the Colts to win the division, but I also like the Titans to make the playoffs. I mean, I see the Titans going at least 11-5. Maybe 12-4, but more likely 11-5 to make the playoffs. So I think we haven't talked about we haven't really talked about the AFC West yet. Okay, so let's touch on that before we go forward. I think the Chiefs are going to win that division, even though they've lost to the Raiders. But the Raiders have 2 more losses than them right now.
Yeah, they're a better team than the Raiders, even though they lost to them. I think the Raiders could still make the playoffs. I mean, they're right in that kind of pack with Cleveland and Miami, and there's maybe that last seed there,
right?
Because I think you got to figure that Titans and Colts both make it,
right?
Ravens make it,
right?
So then you got really the Dolphins, Browns, and
Chiefs,
and
Dolphins, Browns,
Raiders,
and Raiders, right?
Kind of fighting for that last spot. They're still in it. The Broncos 3-4, they're not going anywhere.
No, they're not going anywhere. Chargers are going to be a good team in the future.
Yeah, Herbert. I need to point this out. Like he's the real deal. I think he's the best rookie quarterback in this year's class.
I agree.
Although we said Burrow looks pretty good, I think Herbert looks really good. I think he might be one of the best rookies in the past few years. Going back to like Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
I think they have a good future with him.
I think Burrow has done more with less than Herbert has done, maybe. From that standpoint.
Yeah.
But it's funny how these rookie quarterbacks. We talked about this too. Burrow now has T. Higgins, the rookie that they drafted from Clemson. He seems to like to go to him a lot, and he's been going to A.J. Green a lot lately. And Herbert has Keenan Allen. He always looks for Keenan Allen. So those guys have benefited from the fact that they've got rookie quarterbacks that like to go to them, and trust the guys that have had some experience. So yeah, I like the Chiefs to win that division. I like the Raiders to be a chance to make the playoffs, and I think right now I would say going in. My picks right now through the halfway season, I think the Bills win the East, the Chiefs win the West, I think the Steelers win the North, and I think the Colts win the South, and I think your wild card teams are going to be the Titans and the Ravens, and then one of the following 3, either the Browns, the Raiders, or the Dolphins.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are your look at the playoffs there for sure.
Yeah, and we both picked the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl, and I still like that pick from me.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I just think now you got to throw the Steelers in the Super Bowl.
Yes, you do.
It's possible, but I think it's going to be one of those two.
And thank you, Nathan, for looking up for us that the Chiefs do not play the Steelers. So what that means is, I don't know off the top of my head right now all the tiebreakers, but the Chiefs have to hope the Steelers lose at least one game, which they will. They're not going to go undefeated.
Yeah.
So I think the Chiefs still have an outside chance of having the AFC Championship game at their home. again, I apologize to Nathan because the Ravens are his team. I don't see the Ravens making it now. I said they would in our pregame show or preseason show. I don't see them making it to the AFC Championship game because they just don't look like they've gotten any better in the passing game.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard for them. I don't think they're going to win the division. It's going to be hard for them to come out of a wild card and have to go maybe to Pittsburgh, maybe to Kansas City. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just
No,
saying.
I know. Yeah.
So that's kind of the AFC for us.
Yeah.
Let's switch over to the NFC. Let's start with the NFC least or the NFC East.
Like in both National Treasure, somebody's got to make the playoffs.
Somebody's got to make the playoffs, but somebody's got to win that division, Ben, right? So right now it looks like the Eagles are going to win that division. I think they have the better team of any of the other three. The Cowboys are a mess right now.
Yeah.
They've lost Dak Prescott, which I remember me mentioning on the preseason show. He bet on himself, took the franchise deal. The worst thing that could happen happened. He got hurt. A pretty gruesome injury. His season is over.
Yeah.
And now, you've got a team that not only are they not winning, they're starting to backbite and talk about the coaches not putting them in good situations.
Yeah.
They've gotten blown out, 3 games in a row. I mean, they're a mess.
I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen now.
No, it's
obviously.
not going to happen.
Washington's not any good. And they upgraded themselves by benching Haskins.
Right.
When they still were in the division. Or I guess they're still in it. But when they really early on in the season to try to salvage their season, but they just don't have it. The Giants were out of it too. So, yeah, I think the Eagles end up winning. Carson Wentz is, I wouldn't say he's anything more than a good quarterback, but they have the best team, I think.
Well, what's going to be interesting about that division, though, is you look at the Redskins have a game in hand against the Eagles. Remember, they beat the Eagles at opening day.
Yeah.
If they happen to sneak up and beat the Eagles again, they'll both have 3 wins. Right. This could be an interesting. And let's say the Giants beat the Redskins this week, okay? And the Giants go to 2 wins. The Redskins have 2 wins. Let's say the Eagles lose. This is a division. You could have a team with 5 wins win this division.
Yeah, I know. Nobody's out of it.
No.
I just think that the Eagles are going to win the division.
I agree. I agree with you there. I agree with you. And I want to apologize to all our listeners right now. I said that I picked the Giants as a playoff team. I don't really know what I was thinking about there. I thought for sure they would win at least 7 games. Of course, they did lose Saquon Barkley, and they had their whole offense built around him. But even when they had him, they weren't doing much with him. I think the Giants are better, and what I mean by that is they've been in every game with the exception of the one game to the 49ers that they got blown out. Yeah. They should have won the last 2 games. They had opportunity. They should have beat the Eagles. They should have won against the Buccaneers. Yeah. So the Giants could easily be 3-5 right now, which is not a great record. But at least they're playing well. They haven't given up yet, which is more than I could say for the team last year. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're in agreement the Eagles probably won that if you had to pick a team right now.
Yes.
But, like you said, also anybody's in it, and that it's a pretty bad division overall.
Yes, it is.
So looking at the NFC North, all right, the Packers and Bears both have 5 wins. I don't take the Bears seriously.
I don't either.
I think I mentioned when we were watching the game that if they ended up beating the Saints, I would start to take them a little more seriously at 6-2, but they didn't. And, they benched Trubisky for Foles. Trubisky's not good, but Foles really isn't good either. So they don't really have. It's kind of like 6 and 1, half dozen the other. I mean, they don't really have a quarterback that's going to take them anywhere.
No.
They're just kind of getting by. I don't. They're not going to win the division. I don't think.
No, I think the Packers win that division.
Yeah.
I mean, go back to our show about quarterbacks. They've got Aaron Rodgers. All right, and whether you like Aaron Rodgers or not, he's the best quarterback in that division right now. Period. So I think the Packers win that division. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. I think the Bears have an outside chance at one of those wild card spots, especially with the NFC East. We know that only one team's going to the playoffs from there. So I think they have a chance at that wild card, but I think the Packers win that division. The Vikings, as good as they are not getting it done.
No.
And the Lions, the Lions are the Lions.
Yeah.
What can I say
They're
about
any worse than the Vikings, do you?
No, they're not.
Lions?
But either one of those teams is not going to make it. Yeah.
Do you feel any more confident in the Vikings than you do the Lions?
No.
I think the Vikings may have actually a better team. They just have less. They have one less win. Kirk Cousins is he's holding them back. I mean,
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
not that they have a better option they can put in, but they need to find something out, better option somewhere.
Well, wouldn't you like to be Kirk Cousins right now? I mean, he made basically close to $70 million 2 years with the Redskins, guaranteed under the franchise tag. He got an $88 or $84 million contract from the Vikings, all of it guaranteed. So he basically has $150 million in the bank. That was guaranteed money. So the guy can never complete another pass, and he's set for life. I mean, even if he gets not traded, but even if they don't re-sign him and he goes to another team as a backup, the guy's got it made. I mean, and I'm not saying anything, I'm not alluding to anything. I'm just saying I'd love to be in his situation right now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guaranteed money for a quarterback that's not great.
Just throwing screen passes, basically.
Really.
Yeah.
The Packers win the division. I think we're in agreement with that.
Yes.
Bears have a shot at the playoffs. Again, another team like the Browns where this extra seed will help them, possibly get in, but I'm not convinced they're getting in.
I agree.
Okay, so NFC South. You want to kick that one off?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. I think the Buccaneers are going to win that division, and the reason I say that is they're 6-2, the Saints are 5-2, but the Saints beat them on opening day in New Orleans.
Right.
But that was Tom Brady's first game with him. He had a bad game. I think the Buccaneers beat the Saints rather handily the next time they play them.
Yeah,
okay?
I agree.
And I don't see the Saints. The Saints do not look like a really well-oiled machine to me. So I think the Buccaneers are going to win that division hands down. The Panthers, they're not going to win anything, and the Falcons are just playing out the string. They've already fired their coach. So I think the Buccaneers win that division.
Yeah, I think that's the best takeaway from that opening week one game is the Buccaneers didn't have everything together like they do now. Like the first game for Brady,
right? And
they really showed something in that Packers game when they pretty much handily took out the Packers,
which
they did. Could be a playoff matchup down the road. So when they're shows you when they're playing a good team, they need to show up. They do show up. I think the Saints find a way to get in the playoffs, though. I think that
they do.
They become a wild card seed. I think, kind of going back to the poll question, Breeze, another old quarterback he's kind of getting by. I mean, I think he's trending towards being washed up. He's not quite there yet.
Right.
Similar to Manning in his final year, although I think he's still got a better arm than Manning did that year. But just kind of relying on experience and talent around him, right?
Right.
I mean, at this point.
Right. I agree. And remember, Michael Thomas has been out for a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
So when he comes back, that's going to help them somewhat, But I still don't think they have enough to overtake the Buccaneers. But I think they're almost a lock for the playoffs as one of those wild card teams.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the NFC West. I'll let you kick that one off.
Yeah, and this is a division where, in our previous show, I think I said 3 playoff teams are coming out of the West. And it's still very possible. I think the Seahawks end up winning the division. They're 6-1. Cardinals, I'm not sure I really buy into them at 5-2, like their record says they are. A little bit like the Bears. I think they're better than the Bears.
Right.
Kyler Murray he's been a lot better than I thought he would as an NFL quarterback. I have to say that. I mean, we talked a little bit about this off air too, that the Cardinals were in deep trouble 2 years ago.
Yes.
And they basically just abandoned their whole plan and started over, and it worked out for them. It took some guts to fire the coach after 1 year, and then basically give up on Rosen after 1 year, who was their first round pick. Right. But it turned out to be the right move.
Yes, it did. And the Cardinals, they have a game in hand. They've beaten the Seahawks.
Yeah.
So that gives them one game up on the Seahawks
right.
if they end up tied. But and the Seahawks, there's something about them. I think I picked them to go to the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, against the Chiefs. And that still could happen.
Yeah.
But their defense is horrible. I mean, they've given up 199 points, which is quite a few. I think it's among the teams that we're talking about for the playoffs, that's the most that's been given up. Aside from the Saints, have given up 197.
Yeah, I mean, the Super Bowl Seahawks team is just the opposite of what they are now. The defense carried them.
Right.
Russell Wilson just kind of was there to make sure everything went smoothly. Now he's got to make stuff happen. He's throwing a lot of touchdowns. I don't know the number. And the defense is just kind of struggling, right? So
well, and like I've always said, I'm an old school guy. I always go by the philosophy that if you score, you might win. If they never score, you can't lose. I would rather be the Seahawks team from their Super Bowl years, where you've got a strong defense that shuts people down, because your offense is going to make some plays. But when your offense has to make a play every series, that's when it becomes a little difficult, especially when you start playing better teams in the playoffs.
Right.
And that's what I would worry about the Seahawks.
Wilson's won an MVP, hasn't he?
No, he's never won an MVP. Yeah,
this might be easier. We'll talk about some MVP talk here before this episode's over. But yeah, and the Rams and 49ers. Starting with the 49ers, they're done. But at 4-4, they're not technically done, but they're done. I mean,
Kittle's out.
Kittle's out now. Garoppolo's out.
Garoppolo may be out for the rest of the season. Kittle's out for 8 weeks, which basically is the rest of the season.
They've got a lot of injuries at running back.
Yeah, I don't see them getting in the playoffs.
And the Rams have a shot still. The Rams are weird. Goff's weird. Like,
yes,
he'll look really good some weeks. He'll look terrible some weeks. Like, they look terrible against the Dolphins. I mean, it's hard to get a grip with the Rams. I don't know.
But if you look at those three divisions, right? We already said the NFC East, forget it. Just the winner's going to come out of there. So if you look at those divisions, I think if you say the Seahawks are going to win the West,
right.
the Packers are going to win the North, the Buccaneers are going to win the South. If you look at the other teams, you got the Cardinals, the Rams, the Bears, and the Saints.
You need three of those.
Three of those are going to make it, right? Yeah. So I think there's a great chance for the Rams to make the playoffs.
Oh yeah, they're right in the thick of it. I think they might. I like them better than the Bears. I mean, right? So
yes,
I don't see the Bears making the playoffs. So under that scenario, for me anyway, you got the Saints, Cardinals, and Rams.
Yes,
making it, right, which I think is very possible.
I think it's very possible.
So yeah, that's a great point. Another thing about the Seahawks too, which this might apply to them more than anybody, is that with the coronavirus no fans deal, they lose a big home field advantage.
Yes,
it's always been kind of their thing, is 12th man, noisy stadium, hard to win there. That's kind of taken away now.
Glad I haven't had to hear about that. I think I mentioned that in the preview thing too. Every Seahawks primetime game is always a talking point.
Yeah, exactly.
Tired of it.
Yeah, I'm tired of it too. But I think it does have an effect. And it affects the Chiefs as well. I mean, I think it affects them a little bit more than it does some teams as well.
Do you even know what effect that could have on the Rams, being this they're breaking in their stadium with not a single fan in
right,
it. Like,
right.
If they had a packed house at that new stadium, maybe they have a little more energy.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. All right, so I think we're in agreement that the Eagles win the East, the Seahawks probably win the West, the Packers win the North, the Buccaneers win the South, and then your three wild card teams are going to be some combination of the Saints, the Bears, the Cardinals, or the Rams.
Yeah.
Probably the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Saints is what we're thinking.
Yeah, I think that too. I think it's good.
All right, so Super Bowl, you said Chiefs, Cowboys. Obviously, one of them can still get there, one of them can't. Right. So who would you put in the place of the Cowboys right now?
Yeah, I think the Buccaneers, as we sit here, that's I like the Buccaneers preseason based off my fantasy draft. Like I thought Brady and his company would have a good season, so I'm gonna kind of stick in that same area and say that they get to the Super Bowl. Although, and I'll stick with my Chiefs pick because I picked them before the season. I actually, if I had to pick now, I think the Steelers get there over the Chiefs. But
yeah, I still think the Chiefs are going to win the AFC. I think they have too many weapons. It's hard for even a Steeler defense to stop. I'm going to stay with the Seahawks only because I picked them and they're still considered a favorite. So I got to stay with them. But I think you're right about the Buccaneers. I think they're a team to be reckoned with right now. Their defense is playing very well. They've only given up 165 points, which is pretty good. It's about 20 points a game through 8 games, which is not bad in the NFL. So the Buccaneers are probably the outside chance to get there, but I'll stick with the Seahawks right now.
Okay, so mid-season MVP, or not necessarily at the mid-season point. Who do you think is the MVP of the season so far, or will win MVP? Yeah. I'm gonna go with Brady. I think that the Buccaneers would not be 6-2 without him. You could argue they really should have beaten the Bears in that game, so they could be 7-1. But I think you're looking at a 4-4, 3-5 team without Brady.
Right.
So he's my pick. I know there's some other guys like Russell Wilson's one of the favorites. What do you think so far?
I think Russell Wilson's going to win it. He's on pace now for, I think, 55 touchdown passes or more than that. So if he continues on his pace, I think they'll give it to him because he's fallen short so many other years, and he's kind of the trendy pick right now to be the MVP. So I would say probably Russell Wilson will win it.
I'm trying to pull up the Vegas odds for MVP.
Oh, yeah.
I would say Russell Wilson will be 3-1.
I got the Super Bowl odds right now. As of right now, do you want to hear that? It's basically what you were over. Chiefs are. Do you like the fractional odds or the plus and minus?
Doesn't matter.
The Chiefs are 7-2 odds. Steelers are 11-2. Bucks 13-2. Seahawks 8-1.
There you go. Those are 4 teams.
Yeah. Then right after that is the Ravens, Packers, Saints. MVP odds is.
I'm going to say 3-1 for
for some reason, this side breaks it down into QB contenders and running back. I just went overall.
You got to think they're going to give it to a quarterback.
Here's the overall right here. Who do you think's the number one overall?
Russell Wilson.
Patrick Mahomes.
Really?
And then Lamar Jackson, then Russell Wilson.
Really?
Tom Brady.
That's ridiculous.
Deshaun Watson's 5.
See, that's ridiculous. I mean, first of all, I like Patrick Mahomes, but I wouldn't put him in the MVP mode right now.
No.
And who is the other one? Lamar Jackson? There's no way.
He's number 2 on this.
There's no way.
I'm using VegasInsider.com. I'm assuming this is as of currently.
Yeah.
It looks like. Well, actually, this can't be current. Dak Prescott's
No, can't be.
in the top 10, so...
Can't be, no.
What is this, like... They update every week, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. There are some names, though, that are on this side.
Yeah, I would say that it's got to be Brady and Russell Wilson right now. But
maybe this was preseason, but I don't
could
know.
be, yeah.
Let me see if I can find the current one here.
Yeah, you probably know where to look better than I do.
All right. Let's see here. All right, Russell Wilson's minus 190.
Okay.
He's the favorite.
He's the favorite, right.
Mahomes is plus 300. Brady's plus 700.
There you go.
Rodgers plus 1,200. Murray plus 1,600. So Lamar Jackson all the way down at plus 5,000 now. So
yeah, he's not going to win.
No.
So here's one day ago. Yeah, I see what you're looking
So
at.
Wilson now is the favorite.
By far, because he's only one minus.
Yeah, right.
Well,
So
see, whatever site you use there, see if you can find the Super Bowl thing. 'Cause my Super Bowl might have been. It sounded like it was about. It was about accurate.
The Super Bowl is Chiefs plus 333, Steelers plus 500, Tampa plus 550, Seattle plus 750. So that's
But remember, the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the trendy pick right now to get to win the Super Bowl. But look at the 49ers. The Chiefs are one injury away from being completely out of it. I mean, but they have so many weapons. That's the thing. Nathan and I have Tyreek Hill and Kelsey on our fantasy team, but they go to Nicole Hardeman. They go to this Pringle guy.
They got Le'Veon Bell now.
Yeah, they got Le'Veon Bell. They got Helaire or Elaire or whatever you want to call him. I mean, they got so many weapons. It's hard to defense them. And then you got Mahomes who can run the ball when he needs to as well. So that's what leads me to believe that even an injury, assuming it's not to Mahomes, the Chiefs still have a great chance to win the Super Bowl. But if Mahomes gets hurt, which he did last year, and they came through it okay, I think the Chiefs still are the team.
Last year he got hurt though. What was the deal?
Early on, he got hurt. He dislocated his kneecap.
Was that early on? Or was
It was about a little before Halloween.
Yeah,
but he didn't miss that many games,
He
did
ended up
he?
missing 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, did he? Who's their backup? Do you know?
I
Same
think
guy.
it's Chad Henne.
Chad Henne. Now wasn't it Matt Moore last year?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I think Henne's the backup. But
He is backup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Chad Henne's not very good.
I thought he got hurt with a couple weeks left last year. Just missed the rest of the season. Oh, okay.
But again, with as many weapons as they have, even with Chad Henne at quarterback, they can figure out a way to get those guys involved.
I agree.
Which is hard to hard to defense against.
All right, so those are our thoughts here halfway through the season. Do we want to touch on mid-season fantasy? Our mid-season fantasy thoughts here before we go.
Sure, let's do that.
Okay.
Nathan, I'll start by saying Nathan and I started 2-0. We've scored a lot of points every week. I think one week we scored 88, but other than that, we've always been over 100 points. But we seem to always get caught up against somebody that scores 150 or 160 points. We're 4-4. We're 2-4 since the start, but we're still in the thick of it. We're the 9th seed, and 8 teams make the playoffs.
All right. I'm 0-8.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
The last pick.
I did.
Everybody know that?
Listen, I'll just reiterate. The last pick puts you in a major bind, and unless the NFL MVP falls into your lap week 6 or 7, or around 6 or 7, which didn't happen for me. It rarely happens at all. So look, I was put in a bind. Nick Chubb went down in week 3, I think, week 3 or 4, and he was consistently my top scorer. So yeah, I mean, Brady is my top performer this year. He consistently gets me over 20 points a week. It's just not enough. Like I don't. What are you gonna do now? I still generally agree with Nathan's revelation about running backs and receivers, but it's really hard. You don't have any. I'm still gonna say you don't have any running backs this late in the season, right? I don't have Chubb. He got hurt. I drafted Marlon Mack, who tore his Achilles promptly in the first quarter of week 1.
But that's a guy that he was not considered to be a high pick. I think he could have turned out well.
He was their starting running back. I mean,
was he in the top 10 on the fantasy list of running backs? Probably not.
They've won the top 10.
That's what I'm saying. That's my example of taking a guy that's not, you can take a guy late.
But whatever. And then you got Peterson, who after week 1 looked great. They gave him 18 carries for 97 yards. Well, they don't even give him the ball anymore.
Peterson's strange. He could be a good performer for you if they just hand him the ball.
It's the Lions' fault. It's not his fault. Yeah. So I'm starting these random guys that start getting me points. That's part of it.
Well, like you said, I obviously still generally agree with my principle too. But we're in that situation. We don't have any running backs also, and it is tough. So, maybe I'm not as fervent about my principles as I was at the start of the season. But I still have to generally say that it would work.
But look at my team, especially your all's team. Like you guys could start any combination of receivers and have a good looking week. I mean, you've got Higgins, Claypool, Hardman, that Renfro for the Raiders gets points. I mean, so there's a lot of receivers out there you can start and be competitive with. There's not that way in running backs. You know what I mean? You have to get your running backs in the draft, and you really only have 1, maybe 2 that you can rely on. Another thing, after week 1. I picked up Malcolm Brown from the Rams, who week 1 scored 20-something points, 2 touchdowns. You'd think that's their guy. Well, then they had to start playing this other guy, number 27. I forget his name now. Rams. So Malcolm Brown's basically the backup now. I don't know his name on the top of my head.
Henderson. Is this
Henderson? Yeah, right.
Is that him?
It is Henderson, I think.
I thought that was...
the guy you traded... you traded Brown to us, right?
I ended up trading him, but...
I thought someone else had Henderson.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this. Listening to your point about the receivers, you're right. There's plenty of receivers out there to pick up because you never know who they're going to go to on a given day. And the running backs, you're right about that point. But let me say this. This is the first time I've ever played in a 14-team league. We've always played in 12-team leagues. I think in a 14-team league, in the other years I've been in fantasy, when you get to this point in the season, there's always somebody you can pick up. You look at the running backs thing, there's a bunch of dogs on there. Yeah. Half of them are free agents. They're not even on a team, okay? And then you got guys on the list that have like 2 points, 3. I mean, there's no running backs out there to pick up, okay? I mean, we tried to trade a couple times for running back, but teams wanted the house to get a running back, which you're right. You've got to get your running backs in the draft and get lucky enough that they don't get hurt. Otherwise, there's nobody to get.
Said 12. You're saying 14-team league puts more emphasis on your draft, basically.
Yeah, for the running backs it does because everybody's got all the decent running backs.
I would say this. I think some of the trades that we were involved in before they fell through, I think they were pretty reasonable trades. I think we just felt like the running back that we would have gotten was not quite worth. We felt like our running backs would probably get similar production.
I mean, we had some that wanted to trade as Leonard Fournette for who do you want? Who do you want for Leonard Fournette?
Higgins.
Was it? It's Higgins.
It was Higgins.
No, it's Higgins. I think.
It was Higgins.
Which is, I think that's a reasonable trade. Back to my point. That Fournette is pretty similar to the ones we got. So why even make a trade on it?
Right. Exactly. Why even do that? I mean, I think that's ridiculous. Okay. And then we offered one guy Higgins for Devontae Freeman, who the Giants picked up, right? It became the number 1 back. He rejected it. Then he wanted to give his Devontae Freeman for Tyreek Hill. Well, why would we give arguably our number 1 fantasy performer for Devontae Freeman? I mean, we wouldn't do it, right?
That's an obvious. We just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but my point is, there's nothing out there, and some of these teams, they know they scan the teams like we do, and they know who's bereft of running backs, so they offer you a deal which is friendly to them, but not friendly to you, and because they know you need running backs, and they're hoping that you'll bite. They're throwing a net out there and hoping that you'll bite. You know,
that's something. But also, I also think there are also just a lot of trades, like I was saying, where you do the trade, but you're kind of in the same spot you were in. So why even do the trade?
Right, exactly.
It's just kind of like a nonsensical trade.
Now, we got lucky because we picked up Wayne Gallman. Once Devontae Freeman was ruled out for last week, Gallman was still available. We picked him up and he got us 14 points. Yeah. All right, so that's great. But he's a one. He may be this week, maybe, but then Devontae Freeman's going to be back, and they're going to put him back in the lineup. You know?
Yeah. I'm okay with 14 teams. I'm okay with it. Your point's well taken about somebody to pick up, but I'm okay with it. Another thing too is you got, which look, there's nothing against the rules about this. I'm not. You got teams. One guy's. You got Derrick Henry. You got Jones, the guy for the running back for the Packers. Jones.
Oh, Adams or Jones?
Jones.
Okay.
Adams a receiver. Yeah.
He had Mostert. When he's scanning the waiver wire each week and picked up Devontae Freeman.
Right.
He
didn't need him.
Yeah. That's not nothing. There's nothing illegal or nefarious about that. But why are you scanning the waiver wire week to week when you have 3 starting running backs? What are you doing?
It's almost like it's almost like they're stockpiling running backs for future trades. You know, to get people. In order for trade fodder. But you don't need to pick up that running back.
Basically, it's fantasy socialism. I mean, it's like all the assets are in the hands of one person, and then they want to parcel them out to people for whatever you've got left.
Could you also say it's a socialist way to look at it by saying give somebody else a chance to get that running back? Like rich get richer. Well, that's another way to look at it.
I guess you could.
I'm not saying it's anything wrong with that. I'm
just trying to be funny.
If you're that guy, what are you doing? Like why?
Well, I think he's probably picking them up for trade fodder to use as a trade piece because they know that. As soon as that person becomes a hot name and they pick him up, they know people are going to want to probably pick up that running back because there's not many running backs in the league.
Right,
so now
I think I was one of the guys who proposed the trade to because he saw he needed a running back and he wanted, I think it was Mike Evans. Well, yeah, but I probably needed a running back, but I'm not going to make him better by giving him Mike Evans for a guy for him trading away a guy he doesn't need.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, come on.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I can see why they're doing it because, like you said, let's say they need a receiver and they don't want to give up one of the top runners. Now they get this guy.
Right.
But it is kind of ridiculous. Why are you scanning for a running back? I mean, I guess I just said why you could be, but it's a little ridiculous.
It is a little ridiculous. I think so.
But then again, I guess it's part of the whole chess game. If you need a receiver, that's one of the ways to go about getting one. Yeah. Pick up a hot running back off the waiver wire and sell and trade for a receiver, I guess.
So would I be correct in saying that at 0-8 that you would be a seller in the trade market?
Yeah.
Poor Joseph, he's 0-8. But you've had some good weeks. That's the thing that's so weird.
That's true. Yeah.
You scored a lot of points one week.
One week I scored 140-something. The guy I'm playing obviously scored 150-something. So it's...
I'm with Joseph. I don't really have a problem with a 14-team league. I can see how it puts more emphasis on the draft, and then you could be behind the 8 ball of no fault of your own if one of your picks gets injured like Joseph, and then you're kind of screwed. It has nothing to do with your draft where you just have an injured player. So I can see how it puts more emphasis on the draft and less on free agency. But I don't really have a problem.
No, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying. I'm just stating a fact. But. And then we had the great 2020 COVID scandal of fantasy where, you had guys that were supposedly going to start for you, and then all of a sudden they're magically on bye because the game got canceled, and you have to drop them, because you don't have any other way to go. You either got to drop somebody you don't want to drop or drop them to pick up somebody to play for them, and then somebody else comes in and scarfs up that player, which you never really intended to drop. So, again, my point there was that ESPN Fantasy Football has a rule that says you can have up to 4 IR slots this year for COVID. Well, I mean, that would be the logical way to go. That way you can save those guys on COVID slots and pick up other guys, until those guys get to play again.
Yeah, and you couldn't really misuse that because I don't think if it's an IR slot, you can't put a regular player in there unless they're on the IR.
IR, exactly.
See, I'm not sure though. These guys who were not contact traced or who didn't test positive, their team just wasn't playing that week. They didn't have an IR by their name. So my point is, I don't know if ESPN would have let you fill them in those IR spots.
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? Like they just played on a team that wasn't playing.
I don't know. That's a good question, but it still puts a bind in your fantasy because you draft. If you have any brains at all, you're drafting based on bye weeks, right? You're never going to draft 2 guys at the same position that are on bye week the same time. At least you shouldn't be. Well, now you may end up in that situation, right? Because somebody had a regular bye, and then somebody else is not playing a game due to COVID. So now you've got two guys on bye from the same position.
Yeah, I think everyone involved, the platforms that, well, I guess they did address this, ESPN, by allowing up to 4 now this year.
Right.
So I guess there's more on the leagues to you got to see this coming and make sure everything's in order before the season starts.
Right.
Or I guess if this is your way of doing it, if you feel like it's just let it be a free for all, whatever happens, that is an approach. It's not to say that you wouldn't have an approach if you didn't use those 4 slots. Maybe your approach is we don't care about that. We're just going to let it happen. That's an approach. So
I guess so.
I mean, like maybe it wasn't. Maybe the leagues did address it, and they just decided, well, we're just going to treat it like an injury. If it happens to you, too bad. You can't help
then
it.
don't go halfway. Either give you the 4 slots,
right?
And say, hey, we're gonna take into account coronavirus, or don't give any slots and say, look, by joining our league, you know how it's going to be.
Right.
Don't try to act like you're handling it and not really handle it.
Right. Exactly.
That's a good point too. Don't go.
So yeah.
Make a statement at the start of the league saying, hey, this year all coronavirus cases and players who could be affected will be treated like injuries. If you have to sit them out, too bad. It's like an injury. You have to sit out.
Right.
Or if you have to drop them, just like an injury, you'd have to drop an injured player. It's too bad.
And that's what they ended up saying was the philosophy, which is fine, but that should have been said from the start. Because we knew COVID-19 was gonna have an effect. But
so yeah, I mean, you guys are still in the playoff hunt.
We're still
make it.
I'm not feeling good about our chances because I don't know. I don't know.
Well, you still haven't played me, so you have a win coming up there.
No, that'll be the week when you break out.
Yeah.
That'll be the week you score 140, and we'll score 120 probably.
Yeah.
All right, so our NFL midseason recap there. We'll do I'm sure another postseason playoff preview recap type of deal. Certainly coming up there. We got the Masters coming up.
Masters, yes.
It'll be a big weekend. Nathan's shaking his head, I think.
Well, I think you mean it's a big weekend because you like Tiger and it's gonna be exciting. I don't agree with that. If you like golf and you always like the Masters, it's gonna be a great weekend.
Okay,
right?
So we'll talk about that in the upcoming episode.
But right, you're saying it's gonna be great because Tiger's gonna be in the hunt, right? If Tiger wasn't playing, would you be saying this is gonna be a great weekend coming up?
No.
Yeah, you're gonna be disappointed.
He's the defending champion.
Yes, he is.
We know he can roll out of bed and win that tournament. So we'll talk about that.
We got Notre Dame playing Clemson this weekend.
That's right. The Chanticleers, the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers are 6-0 now.
Our friend of the program, Josh Caraway.
Yeah. So
if they go defeat, we have to have him back on before a bowl game or something.
I wanted also stated on Pressbox Podcast because I know Josh Caraway listens that we did tell him that if they make it to a major bowl, we want sideline passes.
Right.
So I want that known that. If they make it to like the Orange Bowl or the Sugar Bowl.
Did you tell that? You said that when he's coaching.
I did say that. That's right.
I think you said when he's coaching a Power 5 conference, you want sideline.
we're saying right now we want some sideline passes.
Okay.
We do. Josh, if you're listening, which I know you are, we want some kind of swag if you guys make it to a big bowl.
That's right. Yeah. So.
But what did they do the last time we had him on? What did they do? Maybe the good luck charm was being on the Press Box podcast.
Could be. That's right.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. That certainly doesn't hurt. So.
No, it doesn't hurt. That's right.
If you're a college football coach and you want some good luck for your team, contact us on Twitter.
They were undefeated. They were already undefeated when we had them on, like 4-0 or something.
3-0,
2-0, 3-0, something like that.
Yeah, so we got a lot to talk about coming up here, in our future episodes. So be sure to listen in and also interact with us on Twitter. I think we referenced the poll question we put up about the quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. I always like to hear interaction on Twitter, per usual, at PressBoxPod. Mm-hmm. And anything else you want to add?
No, remember we have Bonus Room Art, one of our sponsors. Go to bonusroomart.com. Check out the prints that are on there. Also, my blog, theoldlinebacker.com. That's theoldlinebacker, one word.com. All the Pressbox podcast episodes are also available there, as well as some other good sports information and inspirational information as well. So, check us out. We'd love your interaction. Right, we also want to shout out to Stanton Cameron, another friend of our program.
That's right. And so, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Pressbox Podcast.